Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Eyes video with myself and Mike. Today there is another transfer rumour. It's Harvey Barnes to West Ham, potentially this summer, but the price is being quoted at is pretty crazy. So we're going to break it down and whether we would pay the money that's being rumoured or what we would actually pay for Harvey Barnes this summer. So, Mike, Leicester are, one game away now from Premier League relegation. It looks quite likely that it's going to happen. So, obviously, the rumours are starting to link players away. And the first one that has come out recently is Harvey Barnes to West Ham. Now, we're not a stranger to this link. It's happened before. It was happening last year as well. It was just something that was just not going to happen. And then today, this has kind of come out. West Ham Central tweeted that Leicester are facing a fight to keep £50 million rated Harvey Barnes this summer, with West Ham amongst the clubs keen, also with Aston Villa. So straight off the bat, 50 million is the thing that stands out to me. Is that a little bit ridiculous, or is that just a team trying to price their player for similar to what we're doing with Declan Rice?
So, yeah, it's similar to what we're doing with Declan Rice. I think at the moment with Leicester, you would probably say the sellable assets are a lot fewer than what it used to be. He is probably the most sellable asset. Obviously, Tielemans, they're not going to make any money on Tielemans. His contract is up this summer, so that's out the window. And you start to go through their team and you go, well, where are they going to essentially fill their war chest? Tete, whilst he's been fairly good, still isn't a Leicester player. He's on loan. Yeah. So again, you look and go, well, he's the player that they need to fund their transfer market. We've seen the same with Everton with Onana recently, where they're looking at they're potentially going to sell him to fund their window, and that's because financial impropriety has put them in that position.
Yeah.
But with Leicester, they're going to get relegated. They're going to be in a lot of trouble financially if they get relegated. By all accounts, it's not great. I think even Kevin Maguire said so, that their accounts are in a really poor position if they get relegated. So it's kind of a thing of they know they need to get rid of Harvey Barnes. He is their most sellable asset. So instantly they're going to put it out there that they're willing as such.
Yeah.
The other thing is they need to ensure that they recoup a substantial amount of money because they're getting relegated, because they then need to offset any other financial problems that they may have. So I would probably say, it's overpriced, because if they get relegated, it's if they're in the Premier League and they're doing well, obviously it is big. And obviously I forgot James Maddison. James Maddison, yes, he's a very sellable asset.
Yeah.
But I would probably say that if you were claiming 50 million for James Maddison, you probably have much more of a claim and much more of a stake. I think claiming it for Harvey Barnes, who pretty positive hasn't had an England call up either. So
I think he played for the under-21s for a bit. But in regards to kind of the pricing, it's very much they're trying to get 50 million. I think if Leicester were to remain in the Premier League, so inevitably that will dip down if they do go into the Championship. So when we kind of take the price out of the occasion and we're looking at the player, Harvey Barnes, these are kind of the stats that he has produced in the Premier League over the last 4 seasons. So you can see there, it's a decent return for a winger. I think last season, 16 goals and assists is a pretty decent return. Obviously, you'd want some more goals. This season's actually been his best goal-scoring season, despite Leicester, really struggling. With Harvey Barnes, it's, we're going to compare him to Benrahma in a minute with the stats, but when you look at Harvey Barnes as a player, you know what you're going to get. A very direct player, a very, pacey winger that's going to look to get in behind, decent dribbling. And one thing you would say, although he scored 12 goals this season, is he's not massively clinical. I think he can be quite wasteful with his chances. And we've probably seen the same with Bowen this season. So how would you think that he would actually suit us? Do you think it would be a good move regardless of the price? Because bringing someone like that in, it's going to add a little bit of difference compared to someone like Said Benrahma. But you also then need to facilitate that, in my mind, with your midfield free options, because you can't have like Bowen and Barnes and then take away the creativity of Benrahma, for example.
Yeah, I think when you look at Barnes, you're buying more an inside forward than you are as a winger. Obviously, he's been far less creative this year. If you were to compare him with Benrahma from a in possession point of view, he creates a lot less. He's involved a lot less in the overall kind of build up play and linking That's something that I think has been very, very abundantly clear in the second half of the season with Bowen, in that he's gone, I like to call it searching a lot more. And we found that if you do not have a fullback who is comfortable driving forward with the ball, you really do get caught out. When we've seen without Soufal, the difference between Soufal and Kera, for instance, at right back, when playing with Bowen, we are far more lopsided in terms of our build-up and also our ability to attack. I think bringing in Barnes, whilst he will remain slightly wider than Bowen, he naturally wants to go in field and wants to be close to goal. Yeah. Great. But you need to be able to play with great width, and you need to be incredibly brave to push your fullbacks on. If we go with this current managing situation, I don't see it working out as amazing as it could do, because of his natural game means that we'll become very, very kind of narrow, because we don't necessarily have the bravery in which to push our fullbacks up so high.
Yeah.
It would be I think it would be a very good deal. One that we've also going to, we're part of this huge, extensive list of players we're putting together as players that we think would be great options for West Ham. He is on that list. I don't think you can look past him. He's a very good homegrown option, very good homegrown player. But I think if you're looking in the current setup, it's probably one of those ones that maybe actually doesn't suit us as well as it should do.
In my mind, it's kind of like, if he was to come in, I think that the positives are that, like you mentioned, he's a homegrown asset. He's still only 25 years old, so he's still got time for development and to hit his peak, and he may thrive in a different environment. You know, he's been at Leicester for 4 or 5 years now. I mean, since he came through the academy, so he's been there all his life. So
I think bar the West Brom loan where he was phenomenal.
Exactly. So he's been around there a long time, and sometimes that new challenge can help. And especially if we've got European football next season, he'd be a very good asset to use because we're going to be playing a lot of games again. So 50 million is ridiculous. We shouldn't be paying anywhere near that. I think around the 30 million mark is probably the better price for him, and that would be a good deal, because you look at someone like Ismail Assar, for example, from Watford. He was being quoted for similar figures before Watford went down, and now it's kind of like 20-25 million. I think we could have picked him up for last summer. So the price will go down if
Leicester. He's also got 2 years in his contract, hasn't he?
Exactly.
We know Rice does as well, but again, we're going to be a Premier League club, potentially England's captain of the future, our current captain. You would argue there's more stock in Rice than, say, Harvey Barnes.
Absolutely.
And as you mentioned, that them getting relegated again, it depreciates the value of the player, especially with 2 years left. And you probably need to get rid of him because of financially, you maybe can't support having him.
Yeah, I think the last thing I want to just do is compare Barnes to kind of Benrahma this season in terms of more of the in-depth stats on how they play, because I've been a big fan of Barnes. I remember last summer we were speaking about Barnes. I said it'd be a great signing. He was in my kind of ideal transfer dream list thing. And what I will say is we will have to facilitate around it, because we're going to be playing Bowen on the right-hand side, and Benrahma offers a lot of different stuff to Bowen. You know, Bowen's a very different type of player to Benrahma, and almost like that inside forward that you're talking about with Harvey Barnes. So we would then drop off creativity, and if we're going to lose Rice, for example, we're going to have a defensive midfielder come in for him, but we're also going to probably persist with Souček and Paqueta. So now, if we're not going to play like a Fornals Paqueta pivot as eights, we're not going to make up for that creativity by bringing Barnes in. So just to kind of compare, just so you guys are aware of what this is. So it's kind of like the percentile among kind of all of the top wingers amongst European leagues. So you can kind of see the difference between both Harvey Barnes and Said Benrahma here. So they're pretty similar with their progressive runs per 90. Obviously, Benrahma's a lot better at dribbling, which that was
far more successful.
Yeah, it was quite a surprise to me to see that one, because I thought Barnes was quite a good dribbler. But obviously Benrahma's, that's probably one of his best assets. Non-penalty goals, obviously Barnes is a lot better. As we said earlier, he scored 12 goals in the Premier League. The XG plus XA per 90, Benrahma tops him up. He's in the 80th percentile, which is really good. Obviously assists, we're talking about that creativity. Benrahma's going to offer it more. And again, key passes per 90, a big, big difference there. You know, we're losing a lot of creativity if we take Benrahma out and put Barnes in. And, you know, you look at the overall successful offensive actions per 90, I mean, it's very different as well. So kind of looking at those stats, I mean, I know it's based on just this season and well, Leicester and West Ham have struggled, but if Barnes is to work, it's going to have to be accommodated, right?
Oh, absolutely. If he's allowed to play as that inside forward, to be, I guess, slightly limited in build up and doesn't necessarily have to be creative for. Obviously, we saw in the last season 10 assists, 6 goals, which is pretty similar to what Benrahma was last season. Now, Benrahma's constantly questioned in that he apparently is not creative enough and doesn't necessarily score enough goals. Now, the counter argument is a player who just scores goals and doesn't assist, is that good enough? Well, arguably no, because look at how much criticism Bowen has finally started to get about some of his performances, which have been well below par, because it hasn't been creative enough in open play and hasn't scored enough. So if you have a player of the same ilk on the other side, all of a sudden your ability to attack in the flanks becomes almost redundant in many cases. And if they're not firing, you are going to stutter and foul as a team. And you are going to be heavily reliant on, as I say, having fullbacks who can be pushed incredibly high in which to give that room and allow them to essentially go missing. And then you also then need to ensure that you have 3 very competent ball playing midfielders. We don't currently have 3 competent, very good ball playing midfielders, and we're potentially losing one. So whilst Harvey Barnes is could be a fantastic opportunity and a fantastic buy, it's one that I would caveat very heavily in that within our current structure and our way of playing, it could also be a catastrophe.
So I think with Harvey Barnes, like you mentioned, and it is very much an accommodation. We'd have to be careful. One thing I would say is it maybe will suit Moyes' style a little bit more if he wants to go back to that counter-attacking way, which I think he probably will if he stays past the summer. Now, again, there's so much up in the air around the club. It's so difficult to kind of judge transfers at the moment because you don't know who's going to be in charge of, actually operating these players. So Harvey Barnes overall, I think the assessment is it would be a very good sign-in for around 25, 30 million, but 50 million is just crazy. And to make it work, it will have to be accommodated by other things. But one thing we don't want to do is remove Benrahma's creativity from the side and have 2 players like Barnes and Bowen, because we will then lack creativity in the middle of the pitch if you only have Paqueta, providing it. If we go for whether it's Rice playing DM or another one that comes in, and we persist with Souček. So let us know what you guys think in the comments anyway, because it's an interesting one, and people will probably be like, absolutely love Harvey Barnes. 50 million's still, England international, well, potential England international. So let us know in the comments. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on him. Leave a like on the video if you are new to the channel. Subscribe as well. And Mike, until next time.
Come on, you Irons.